it's Jack from Cultaholic.com with a very sad news update, actually, as you can tell from our title. We also have a couple of other news stories after that as well, but obviously the most important thing in this video is the first of our three headlines. Yes, that's right, Road Warrior Animal, tag team legend and WWE Hall of Famer, has sadly passed away at the age of 60. Meanwhile, Roman Reigns has implied that he may be changing his attire for this week's Clash of Champions. And finally, The Rock has admitted that himself versus Roman Reigns at WrestleMania would make sense. So first of all, of course, we have to start with the very sad news that the legendary tag team wrestler and WWE Hall of Famer and, you know, all the different accolades you can say about him, Road Warrior Animal has sadly passed away at the age of 60. Very, very young age indeed, and it's certainly a tragic loss. We would like to send our condolences, of course, to the family and friends of Road Warrior Animal. Real name, of course, Joe Laurinaitis, and what more can be said about such a fantastic career? I mean, the Road Warriors are one of the greatest tag teams of all time. Of course, they're remembered that way, and basically won all there was to win at that time. They became legendary in various different territories around the States and, of course, in Japan as well, and to this day remain the only tag team to have won the AWA, NWA, and WWF tag team titles. Animal also had notable solo runs in his career as well, such as in the early 90s in the WWF, in the sort of early 2000s in the dying days of WCW, and of course as well a bit of a career resurgence in the mid 2000s in WWE, endearing him to a whole new generation of wrestling fans. He is of course one half of one of the greatest tag teams of all time, many people's favourite tag team of all time, and is needless to say a huge loss for the wrestling world. Next up, some slightly more cheerful news, just because it's more normal news, it's the more sort of standard news we like to report here at Cultaholic. So getting back to normality slightly, Roman Reigns has implied during a virtual meet and greet with Mania Club that he could be changing his attire this weekend at Clash of Champions, where he is of course defending his Universal Championship against his own relative, Jey Uso. Roman was speaking amid rumours that we might be seeing an updated look for him now that he has been aligning himself with Paul Heyman, acting a bit heelishly, and who knows what's to come. So Roman just spoke on that himself, saying, "The gear, let me address that, get over it. I'm not going to run out there in trunks. I've been wearing a SWAT outfit my entire career, so I'm going to stick with those pants. If you watch on Sunday, you'll probably see me with my shirt off. That will be the change. That's going to be the only difference. I never wanted the outfit to be the costume for me. I don't want the outfit to be the superstar." Roman also addressed the idea of perhaps a change of music for himself as well, to go with this new ruthless persona he is portraying on SmackDown alongside, of course, Paul Heyman, saying, "We have to go through the channels with that one. It's not like I came out and I'm an ultra bad guy. You've seen it in little steps and little layers. I want all the nuances to add up. Because I'm a full-time performer, you have to keep things fresh, so I decided to save the new music, and hopefully down the line, once more drastic things happen and the story unfolds, then it can be used." And Roman's recent change in attitude has drawn attention from other aspects of the wrestling world as well. Various different people have been indeed talking about Roman Reigns, one of them being his former Shield stablemate, Jon Moxley, now of course the AEW World Champion. Moxley was speaking to the Sun newspaper here in the UK and said the concept of him and Paul Heyman, that was very cool to me. I think that's going to work out really good. All my friends in WWE, I want to turn the TV on and I want to see them kicking ass and doing great. And it seems from those words like Moxley is certainly counting Roman as one of his good friends in WWE and seems confident that this angle is going to pay off big time for Roman. Next up, let's stay on the topic of Roman, but let's expand that slightly, because another person talking about Roman recently was none other than Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. In a new video, which was basically an interview of The Rock on his own official YouTube channel, he discussed potentially returning for a WrestleMania match against the big dog himself. Excuse me, I should have said the tribal chief, of course, reflecting Roman's new change of character. The Rock has said on this matter, "It's so funny how a lot of people always say, well, if you were to go back to WrestleMania, who would be the opponent that you would face? And it feels like the one that would make sense, right, would be Roman in terms of box office draw." You can't really deny that. The Rock was then pressed on who would win the match and made a bit of a joke about this, saying that he knew exactly what that sort of discussion would be like with WWE, implying that, of course, the newer guy kind of has to go over. Although it's not what we've always seen from WWE in those sort of scenarios, but in the case of Roman Reigns, you'd imagine that he'd have to beat The Rock, right? Well, The Rock said this, "I'll tell you this right now, I know how that works, and I'm not going down that road because I know how the conversation goes. listen, here's what we're thinking. Roman beats you now at this WrestleMania, but before you guys say anything, then on to the next one, and that's when we'll resolve it. And The Rock basically there is making a joke out of WWE's 50-50 booking in these big matches. But The Rock also said, the truth is, I will be honoured to not only share the ring with Roman and to go back to the WWE, but of course I will be honoured to have him raise his hand at the end of that one. So The Rock seems to be perfectly willing to put Roman over. They are of course family, it makes a lot of sense, and I think generally it probably is the right call as well, were that super mega match to actually happen. But then again, The Rock's obviously very busy with a lot of other things and he doesn't seem to have much time for WWE these days. But if there was one thing that you'd think would be able to successfully tempt The Rock back into WWE's fold, it would surely be the chance of headlining WrestleMania against Roman Reigns, you know, his own flesh and blood. I think that would be a pretty cool story. And from The Rock's words there, it seems like he would also be quite open to that as well. Now on to this week's AEW Dynamite, which is of course taking place as usual tonight, but we saw a special late night Dynamite last night following the NBA playoffs, which lasted, it was just 1 hour long, had a few matches on it, and basically built up to this week's Dynamite proper, which looks quite stacked, to be honest. The reason this is particularly newsworthy is because Tony Khan has made the announcement on social media that this week's Dynamite Tonight show will see Miro, aka former WWE superstar Rusev, make his in-ring debut. Now, of course, Miro came out and was revealed as Kip Sabian's best man, but not just that, he is the best man. That appears to be his gimmick in AEW. So we'll see what Miro is going to do from here. Of course, we've got Sabian's wedding to Penelope Ford, an angle that's being kind of built up for the near future. But moreover, who's Miro going to clash with? Who's he going to set his sights on? And what is he going to do? Well, we don't know yet who he's going to be facing at the time of recording this video on Dynamite, but we do know that that match will happen. We also know a few other matches on what appears to be a pretty stacked card. Not the most stacked Dynamite we've ever seen, but certainly a nicely filled one. So not only do we have Miro's in-ring debut against an as-yet mystery opponent, we also have Brody Lee taking on Orange Cassidy in defense of his TNT Championship, Jon Moxley in that big 6-man tag match against Lance Archer, his number one contenders team. So we've got Moxley, Darby Allin, and the newcomer Will Hobbs taking on Lance Archer, Brian Cage, and Ricky Starks, Taz's boys. Elsewhere, we have tag team action with the AEW Women's Champion Hikaru Shida teaming with the NWA Women's Champion Thunder Rosa to take on Diamante and Eva Lise, the winners of that women's tag team tournament, and Chris Jericho will also be making an appearance. And finally, one of Impact's classic pay-per-views is set to make a return next month on Impact Plus. Impact Wrestling announced yesterday that they will hold Victory Road on Saturday, the 4th of October, and it'll be headlined by Eddie Edwards challenging Eric Young for the Impact Championship, the Impact World Championship, excuse me. Now, Victory Road it's not one of like the top tier, the biggest of Impact's big historic shows such as Slammiversary and Bound for Glory, but it's certainly up there. It's certainly, the name Victory Road carries a significant weight in Impact history. That's because, for example, it was the first ever kind of regular monthly or quarterly sort of pay-per-view that Impact ever put on back in the TNA days in late 2004 when they ditched the weekly pay-per-view format. That was headlined by Jeff Jarrett versus Jeff Hardy in a ladder match, but we've also seen some huge and oftentimes infamous moments at Victory Roads since then, such as, for example, the huge match between Samoa Joe and Kurt Angle and the Dudley Boys for like all the belts, and also the very infamous, in a negative way, moment when Jeff Hardy turned up to face Sting in like no fit condition to wrestle, leading to one of the most infamous moments in 21st century American wrestling history. So there you have it. Victory Road is coming back on October 4th on Impact Plus. Do check that out if you're a fan of Impact Wrestling. They've been doing well. They've been putting on a very consistent and impressive product during a very challenging lockdown sort of time. So I think, should they build a good card, I think it should be well worth checking out. And that's it for now. Thank you very much for watching this news video. I've been Jack from Cultaholic.com. Leave your thoughts and opinions in the comments section down below. Thanks once again for watching. Stay safe out there, stay positive, and I'll see you very soon.